Welcome back to Long Term. I'm Ty King, and I think everybody kind of needs some help, right? Sometimes, right? Like we all experience something in our lives to where we've got to find a way to climb over it, to get past it. You hear all the time that people that sort of have their demon on their shoulder, right? You got this
Yes.
the little devil, you got the little angel over on the other side, but like that little devil just really doesn't ever go away.
Right.
And some people believe that you should live above your demons, while there's a lot of other people that believe that you can completely rid yourself of them, or you can walk the opposite direction and do something completely different, right? So I'm excited to have you on as a guest today. And so I'll introduce you in just a minute. If you are new to Long Term, so this is the podcast where we talk about recovery from substance abuse issues, whether it's or addiction or alcoholism, but also any kind of trauma, which I think we all can relate to. And how do we all benefit whenever somebody does successfully go through recovery? If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you again for watching or listening wherever you're consuming this podcast. We are available on YouTube for the video version, and we have our audio versions wherever you'd like to listen to your podcast. And with that out of the way, I'm going to go right into it. And today is kind of a very special day for the podcast, but also because it's a very special day for you, my guest. And so, Kristen, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Kristen Stivers, and I'm a certified peer specialist here in Arkansas.
Nice. That's a great way to just like flatly. That's your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
which wasn't the same thing a few years ago.
No, not at all.
Not at all. You would never said, "I'm Kristen Stivers." Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a lot of work that you put into this, and I definitely want to get into your story. So like what that journey is like to become a peer specialist, So let's start from the beginning. Like, where did you come from to get to the point to where you needed recovery or you were interested in recovery?
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people do. I was previously a nurse, a licensed nurse, and I worked as a nurse for a very long time at several different places. And a lot of people are like, "Well, were opioids your problem?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "What was your problem?" I said, "Well, meth was my problem."
While you were a nurse?
No, not while I was a nurse.
Okay.
But alcohol was what started everything.
Okay.
So nursing is really stressful, right? So working as a nurse, like it just all that stress from the job would build up and the tension from the job, and then I'd just go out and drink, and then that's how I would solve my problem is I would drink. But what I didn't realize is I had a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue that I had a problem. Not until I was in active addiction with drugs, and not until I was actually in the early stages of my recovery. Honestly, I didn't even realize I had an issue with alcohol.
It's always surprising to hear, when people, because I know that's a very, very stressful job. And obviously I've never seen it in person except for the times that I've been in the hospital as a patient, But like hearing stories of people that were either doctors or nurses or working in the hospital as staff, how stressful that situation is and how many have, turned to some sort of substance,
Yes.
and it's like, wow, I've heard some stories where it's like you were doing that while you were also, operating on patients. That's insane. So did it ever become a problem to where like you were drinking while you were on the job or to get you through the job?
No. So the way I worked was initially I was a floor nurse, and then I transitioned into an office position where I was the bed placement coordinator. And so I worked the 3 to 11 shift where I basically assigned beds to people on the different floors. Like, so if ICU called or the emergency room called, I would assign them a bed for a patient for, say, they had a heart issue. So we would send them to 3 Northwest if I was at JRMC. That's where I was at. So. But yeah, when I'd get off work at 11, I would leave work and go to the bar. That job, being the bed placement coordinator, you get cussed out a lot. You get just railroaded by every different department in that hospital. They're like, "I need a bed now," and I'm like, "Well, I don't have one available. You'll have to wait till I get one clean." So it was like sometimes we didn't even get a bed till the next morning because they'd have to hold them in those different departments because we couldn't place them.
So what would they do in the meantime? They would just
Wait in the emergency room, wait in the ICU. A lot of it had to do with like staffing,
Yeah.
so you could only have so many patients per nurse ratio, right? So staffing would be a certain way, and you just couldn't have them go to the floor like that
Right.
with being understaffed because that's dangerous. So it was a stressful job. So when I would leave there, I would go and drink. Like, I had a lot of friends. I was in my 20s, still young, and
Right.
I would say, well, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm going out to just blow off some steam, and then it just became a problem.
Were you going to your scrubs or you were changing?
Sometimes
that
I
before you were going?
did.
Yeah, really.
Sometimes I did, yes. So yeah, everybody knew I was a nurse. There
Yeah.
were several nurses I went and drank with. We just would leave work and go drink.
Yeah.
It became to the point where like I would drive home and not even realize that I'd made it home until the next morning when I woke up.
Right.
It was dangerous, but I never got caught.
Yeah.
That was it. I never got caught.
Yeah.
I think if I had, things might have ended up differently, but they didn't.
Right.
So
I've talked to lots of police officers. I'm sure you've heard lots of police officers as well that tell the same thing, where they're like, the difference between you and me is that you got caught and I didn't. But I was doing the same things, and like the DUIs that they could have caught while they were driving home. Yeah, those types of things. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing that you didn't get caught. It's amazing that nobody got hurt in that process.
it helped that my ex-husband was a cop too.
Yeah.
At the time.
Oh, he was a cop. Okay.
So
I didn't
a
even
lot
know.
of his
I was
buddies,
just- okay.
I had his buddies escort me home sometimes, and that's how bad,
Right.
they looked out for each other. That's how it is.
Okay.
So
Interesting. Very cool.
yeah, no, not cool. I should have been drinking and driving. That was bad. Looking back, that was a bad thing. That was not a good thing.
No,
So,
definitely not a good thing. And it kind of enabled you, I guess, having that sort of support system around you,
It
where it's
did.
like, nobody can touch me anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened after I guess it got to a point where, obviously you're
So-
not a nurse now.
So, well, okay, so I'm not, okay, so I'll say this. My license is expired. It was
Okay.
never taken from me. However, if I go to get it back, it's probably going to be a process, and I'll probably have to drug test and things of that nature because
Mm. Yeah.
I did have a substance use background. So,
Right.
but, so I went through a divorce. I went through several after that, like several bad relationships, and it just was crazy. Just
Yeah.
a crazy, chaotic time in my life, where I just drank and had bad relationships and made bad decisions.
Yeah.
And it just continued. Well, eventually I met a guy that let's see, he was 25 and I was like, I think 34 or something like that at the time. He was a lot younger than me. And we were out drinking and he said, well, I got to go somewhere. And we drove to this house and he came back out and then we drove to a car wash, pulled into a stall and he's like, well, I'm about to do cocaine. He said, do you have a problem with that? And I'm like, well, you're grown. He said, well, you want to try it? I said, I was drunk, so mind you. I said, well, what the heck? I've never done it. Why not? So I tried cocaine that night. About 6 hours later, I tried meth.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. 6 hours later, I tried
You
meth.
took the leap. Wow.
Yeah, 6 hours later,
You
I
jumped off the top,
Yeah.
like the middle ladder, the diving board, and then you were like, you know what? I'm just going to go from the very top.
I had what they call the F-its. So
Yeah.
that's what I say, anyway. But
So
yeah.
once I guess whatever kept you from doing cocaine initially or doing hard drugs before, like I don't know, like you dipped your toes because there was alcoholism, but
I think the lowered inhibitions from the alcohol
Yeah.
was the decision maker for me.
then once you tried cocaine, you were like, you know what, meth's next.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, no, it was like, so 6 hours later, we went somewhere. This is after all the bars had shut down and everything. We were done with our Coke. So we went to a friend of his house, and they had the paraphernalia out. And I'm like, what's that? And then they told me, I'm like, okay, well, you want to try? Well, I just tried cocaine. Why not?
Right.
I mean, that's how it was.
Okay. Were you smoking it? Were you
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know it can be consumed in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah. So was that the start of a new addiction, or was that just a one-time only thing?
What cured my alcoholism? We'll say that.
Wow.
I stopped drinking
Wow. You stopped drinking to do meth.
meth. Yes.
Okay.
I
Wow.
traded one for the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did that go? Did you, you were still a nurse at the time.
I wasn't working anymore. I'd kind of stopped working because I'd went through all those bad decisions, and so I was living off my son's disability check,
Okay.
which wasn't much. It was like $700 a month. But I didn't have a house payment. Didn't really have a car payment because I had a cash car. I didn't just paid the regular bills, right? So I wasn't even working at that. There was a point in there somewhere it broke down. I quit working.
Yeah.
So
So what happened to your career as a nurse? Why stop?
when I got there was a relationship I got into was pretty bad, right? One of them, and between the alcohol and I think the bad relationship, I think I stopped working. He was jealous. He was controlling. He was narcissistic in a way.
Right.
And he didn't want me working. So I just quit and I just stopped working.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that was it. He was jealous of your social life outside
I was
of
jealous of everything.
what
If
he
I
was
wasn't
involved
with
in. Right.
Yeah, if I wasn't with him, it was
Yeah.
like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even in your career, that's wild.
Yeah, physically abusive, all of it. He
Yeah.
was all of it. So
So was he still there whenever you started doing meth, or?
no, we divorced, and then
Oh,
I've been married a lot. So
okay. That's a statement.
I don't know if we want to put that.
That's
on,
a T-shirt.
I
I've
don't.
been married a lot.
I don't know
Yeah.
if we want to say how
Yeah.
many times, but quite a
Yeah.
few. We'll just
Yeah.
say that.
Okay.
And he was one of many.
Yeah.
And then I had several during active addiction that I was, people I was in a relationship with or married to, and it just, you know, it always ended bad because the drugs were
Yeah.
always there.
Some people I've talked to, and it kind of seems, I guess I can kind of relate in a way, but like it seems like, you know, addictions kind of cross over into every aspect of your life, right? And so there's substance abuse issues. Yeah, there's that's an obvious addiction, but there's also like addictions to things that we take as like, well, this is part of life, or like relationships. You know what I mean? I think that some people kind of get addicted to having that, especially that first like honeymoon phase of relationships, right? And so it's like, I gotta have that, and this is the one for me. I know it, and then like you stick around and like things don't work out the way, and so you just kind of hop around, but like it turns, from what started off as a great, promising relationship turns bad, and then you just like keep making that process over and over and over and over, expecting a different result. Or not, you know what I mean? It's just like you're just addicted to that feeling of this adrenaline rush of this new relationship, and it's fresh. Yeah.
Well, I'll say I was married to the same man several different times. So,
Yeah.
I didn't make any differences or different changes. I kept marrying the same type of man.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because I didn't care about myself. I didn't have any confidence, self-esteem, any of it.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of that
I
problem.
can definitely relate to that part. Well, I used to, date anybody that showed interest in me. You know what I mean? If I might not have even found her attractive beforehand, but if I find out that she was interested in me, then that was attractive to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you fall into this bad relationship, because that's not grounds to start a relationship on. You know what I mean? I mean, but I didn't learn that till years later, in the process. So yeah, you were in your addiction. You're living off of your son's disability check. I'm assuming living at his house or yours, or
My house.
Okay.
I had a house, but
Okay.
it was before I'd actually purchased it. My mother, she had moved into a duplex that my grandparents owned that was down
Yeah.
the street from me, and she let me have her house because she knew I couldn't afford anything at the time. So I was doing that, and then I got heavier in my addiction. Started selling drugs. It didn't turn out good. The police came in my house. I was busted.
Yeah. So you went from doing drugs to selling drugs.
And doing
And doing the drugs.
It was a good way of supporting my habit.
Sure.
In the process there, I got on disability myself too. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Got you.
So yeah.
Okay, but you got busted.
I got busted.
How'd that happen?
Well, it was my own fault. I shouldn't have been selling drugs, but a couple of people set it up to where I was busted. They had a CI come in and buy from me. Well, not really buy from me, but buy from someone at my house, I guess.
Yeah.
So, because I had several people
So
living
how does
in my
that
house.
happen? Like, so an officer, I guess, undercover officer, or is it an informant?
An informant.
An informant.
Yeah.
Is that what that stands for?
Yes.
Okay.
The day I got busted, there was a girl that borrowed my car to go get a lawnmower,
Uh-huh.
and 5 minutes later I was busted.
Wow.
So not only did I not have my car there,
Yeah.
I was busted and going to jail and everything else. And I got some pretty heavy charges.
So, and I only know, like, my only experience is like TV and movies in this area. So, like, is it that this person that was the informant was like, they were already facing charges, but they're like, hey, we'll reduce your sentence if you work for us and go in here try to
Usually
help
how it
us
works.
bust? Is that how it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's usually.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure because I've never been one, but I'm pretty sure that's usually how it works.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That makes sense. And so, did they arrest you?
oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got arrested.
Okay. And what came out of that?
So I went to the jail in Sheridan. I was in there for like 3 days. I was begging my dad to get me out. He called the police department, asked him what I got busted for, and he's like, well, I'm going to let her stay there for a few days. But my mom come in and bonded me out. She was very enabling, so she always enabled my drug use. If I needed money, I would go to her and say, I need cigarettes. She'd give me $30, and I'd go buy drugs and cigarettes. So, it was kind of like
Yeah.
that. But so I was in jail for 3 days. I got out. And then I had court appearance after court appearance after court appearance. And finally, I took a plea deal for drug court.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So drug court. About what year was this?
Okay, so I was busted in 2020. I started drug court in 2022.
Wow, that's pretty fresh.
Well, it was during COVID. You know, if you
Yeah.
think about it, I went through COVID and all that. So it took 2 years to get to the plea deal.
Okay.
And 2022, I started drug court in April.
Yeah.
So my clean date coincides with pretty much me starting drug court. I used pretty much up until about when I started drug court.
How many years was that you were using?
Okay, so if you count the alcohol too, 17.
Okay.
About 17.
Okay.
So
Interesting. Yeah, I wasn't thinking it was that recent. I was, like it sounded like it was like maybe early 2000s or something is what I
Yeah,
had in my
no.
head. But no, okay, very very recent.
no.
Okay. So I guess what is the experience of like going to drug court like? That's why I was asking what year, because
Drug
like
court's
it changes all the time. It seems like the rules, and it also depends on like
Yeah.
what judge you go in front of, like what the rules are for the drug court. But also each drug court has its own programs and partners that it uses, and so it kind of feels like it fluctuates.
Right. So I was in Jefferson County Drug Court, and it's probably from what I've experienced from talking to other people that's been in different drug courts, it's probably one of the toughest ones in the state, to be honest. And I think that's why the outcome was so good with me, because they are pretty tough. I didn't like them at first. I hate their guts.
Yeah.
They're sitting there telling me to do this and do this and do this, and I'm just like, I've always, when someone tells me to do something, went the other way. So I pissed them off, they pissed me off, and it was a back and forth process. But the thing I didn't understand was they were managing my life.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you would want to piss them off. Like your
Nope.
job would be like, I want to keep these people happy.
Yeah, right. But I didn't do that. So
What was hard about it? You said it was one of the hardest in the States. What was hard about it?
the hardest thing for me, I was really nervous talking to the judge on court days. I would get very nervous, and it would seem like I was lying, but I would just be nervous, and it was hard to talk, to him in court. Now I can go in there and talk to him. I still go up there and visit, but back then it's like every time I spoke, it sounded like I was lying to him. I had so like terrible anxiety, and in the beginning, I wasn't really lying, but I was omitting stuff.
Right.
If they didn't ask, I didn't tell them.
Okay, got you.
So it was one of those kind of things.
Yeah, lie about omission.
But if they would find out, then
Yeah.
I would get in trouble anyway. So it was
Right.
always just something bad.
Sure.
But so it started off like, see, I was on disability, right? So I'm sitting there telling them, well, I can't do the community service part because I'm disabled.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, you're going to do the community service because
Yeah.
it's part of the program. And I'm like, well, how can you make me do that if I'm disabled? Like, that was a mental thing for me. Like,
Sure.
I mentally thought I was disabled to the point that I couldn't do anything. I think it was just lazy from years of just being laid up doing drugs and, just on disability drawing a check.
Mm-hmm.
So, really.
So what was community service like? What did they have you do?
So I had to clean chair backs and things like that.
Chair backs?
Yes.
What does that mean?
In the waiting room, like the back of the plastic chairs and the seats of the chair, I had to clean that with a
At the court or
no at the parole office.
at the
So,
parole offices?
Yeah.
Okay. They're like
I had to
clean
go
our chair
wipe
backs.
wipe doorknobs off. Yeah,
Oh,
things
wow.
like that. So
Yeah.
simple stuff. It wasn't anything serious.
Strenuous work. Yeah.
Right. So I finished majority of it before I went to treatment. So this is all pre-treatment, and they assigned, I was in phase 1. I had been in phase 1 for several weeks. I don't know, way past what I should have been in it. And they told me I had to get a peer mentor is what they told me. That's what they called it, a peer mentor. And so they recommended Marguerite for the Exodus, right? So, man, I went over there and I tried, and we butted heads so bad at first, but I wouldn't listen to anything she said. That was a
Yeah.
lot of it, honestly. I wouldn't listen to her, and I was stubborn, and I still had a lot of problems with myself. So I switched to somebody else, and she supported me. She was a peer specialist, and she supported me,
Right.
and it went well, but it didn't go well for me because drug court it was like I wasn't doing anything they want me to do. I got a boyfriend, he OD'd in my house, and they're like, how do you think we're not going to send you to treatment when you've got an active user in your house? I couldn't understand. Like, I didn't know he was using.
He was that good at hiding it, or
Okay, so I knew he drank,
yeah.
but I didn't know he was using fentanyl. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess there's a lot I don't know about fentanyl. I guess it's a lot that people are just kind of understanding about the whole world if you're not just like kind of
Right.
thrown into it. Is it the same as? I mean, I know it's like more serious and like the consequences are more serious than meth. But are people using it the same way that they use meth?
So, okay, so I didn't know he was using it. The reason I knew he used was because I found him in the bathroom.
Okay.
He was laying there and he sounded like he just couldn't breathe. In my nursing training, like I knew that was like a death rattle, so
Right.
it sounded horrible. And I looked down, there was a piece of foil, there was a like
So he was
straw.
smoking it.
Yeah, he was crushing up, snorting it.
Oh, okay.
So he snorted it. He wasn't smoking it because it wasn't burned on the bottom of the foil.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I didn't even know that if I touched it, it could have gotten me. But at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that he had OD'd on something.
Like it could absorb through your skin.
Yeah.
Or, oh wow.
I'm assuming it could have. I mean, I don't know. They told me to put it down
I don't want to
immediately.
touch it. I don't want to take a risk.
Yeah,
No,
me
definitely
either
not.
now.
No,
But
no.
so I actually had a Narcan available, and I actually did Narcan him and called 911. So, but thinking that drug court wouldn't find out about it was crazy. That's actually when I first met Marguerite. Was at the emergency room. She responded. So
Yeah. And Marguerite Taggart, if you're listening, is
Yes.
she works for Exodus Life, which makes this podcast possible. But she's been on the show before, and Marguerite is a very strong-willed person with lived
Yeah.
experience, and she doesn't take any BS. And like you two, but you said you two butted heads a
We
lot. And I was
butted-
like, oh, I definitely see that. That's not hard to
Yeah.
see at all. Yeah.
Well, since I was so stubborn, we butted heads. But she was at the
Yeah.
emergency room, and she's like, and I was telling her that I was in drug court. She said, "And what are you doing here with him?" And she just was telling me about myself, and I'm just like, "What?"
Right.
You know, I thought I was in love with him, right? He was 27, I was 42. I
Right.
was there with a younger guy, thinking, "Okay, I got this." But like, he was no good for me, and he was just another one of those that if he would have still, he ended up passing away. He died after I got locked up, but.
Wow.
It was how'd that work out? So a couple weeks later, they'd been out of town because they were at a conference. When we came back to drug court and we convened, they decided they're going to send me to 150 days in ACC in West Memphis. That's treatment, they called it. So yeah, I sat in jail for 2 months in Jefferson County, waiting to go to ACC, and I did 5 months there, so I did 7 months total. But while I was in the jail in Pine Bluff, he passed away from an overdose. So
Wow. So when you found him, you saved him, but then he ended up overdosing.
he did.
Yeah. Okay. How did you know how to use Narcan?
I didn't at the time.
You just had Narcan and didn't know how to use it?
Not nasal Narcan. Like I've anytime I've ever given Narcan before, it's been a different route. So the nasal Narcan, I didn't have a clue. I'm sitting there fooling around with this little thing, like, how do you work this? And then I put it in his nose and I happened to push the red thing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I think I did it. But I was starting rubbing him, and I was
Yeah.
I called 911, and I was screaming. The police showed up with I guess another dose of Narcan, but they didn't have to give it.
Right.
You know, a lot of people were thinking that, okay, well, if you had him in your house, you were messing up too, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Right. Oh, that's pretty crazy. So he overdoses in jail, and
Or while I'm in jail.
while you're in jail. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So you went back to jail after drug
no.
court, or
No, I went to jail before drug court. Okay, so I was in drug court.
Right.
They had already gave me the plea. You have to go to jail before you go to treatment.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm sitting in jail for 2 months waiting to go to treatment.
Okay.
So I'm already in drug court. It was considered a sanction or going to treatment, whatever you want to
So
call
you're
it.
in drug court and jail. How does that work?
Okay, so if you're in drug court and you don't exactly do what they want you to do, or you're say you're failing drug tests, right? They can send you to treatment, right,
Uh-huh.
which is a sanctioned at ACC, and they can send you for up to however many. I mean, I think it's up to a year
Yeah.
total, but they sent me for 5 months,
Wow.
so that was treatment, long-term treatment. So, I had to do that for 5 months, so 7 months of that total
Wow.
stuff.
Yeah. And you said that was administered by ACC?
Okay, so drug court and ACC partner. So drug court is the one that sent me there to ACC
Okay.
for 5 months.
Interesting. Was it effective? I mean, did you feel like you got something out of it? It worked?
It was.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
I hated every minute of it, and
Sure.
I cussed that judge, and I tried reporting him to every place I could have thought to
Yeah.
report him to. I'm not even gonna lie about that. I did that. I was an entitled, selfish brat,
Okay.
and thought that the world owed me something, and I did. I didn't think I should be there, but it helped me.
That's good
It
to hear.
did.
So that was the turning point for you.
That was a big turning point. Like, I was already clean, but like I was still thinking like a person that was using drugs. Like, I wasn't thinking like a person in recovery. So Go in there. They taught me a lot of things. I even quit smoking cigarettes while I was, after I got out of there, I didn't even start back up.
Yeah.
So I did a
Okay.
lot of things.
Were you aware of like there was recovery services while you were still in your substance abuse issues? And
I was, and I was using them, but I wasn't. I didn't want to hear what they had to say.
Sure.
That's all it was.
okay.
Like I said, I tried working Marguerite. I didn't want to hear what she had to say. I went with someone that listened to me a little bit more and didn't give me as much. Like she would. Okay, so Marguerite wouldn't take my crap, right?
Right.
But the other person would just like listen to me and just let it go. She
Yeah.
didn't try to force me to do anything or tell me to do something. Which Marguerite didn't do that either. But she just wasn't gonna take my crap.
Yeah.
She's gonna hold me accountable.
Right.
The other person, I wouldn't say she didn't hold me accountable, but she was a little bit more supportive in a different kind of way. Like she didn't judge me or listen to me, which I'm not saying she did either. I mean, you may have to edit this out. I'm not trying to say anything bad. It's just like
Yeah.
they're two different people.
Yeah.
So two different forms of peer services, really. So I just went with one that wasn't gonna be as
Strict or
tough, I guess,
Yeah. Okay.
on me.
Yeah.
And that probably didn't really help me at the time. But when I went to ACC, that was like a mind blower right there. That was not what I expected it to be at all. It was freaking horrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
It was awful.
It was effective, but it was horrible.
It was effective, but it was horrible. So maybe not want to ever go back there again,
Yeah.
for sure.
So were they really tough on you too, or was it was strict?
They were tough on everybody. It wasn't
Really?
just me. Like we had to we had to be mindful of our behavior. So like if we even spoke in the hallway, we could get took to the circle in confrontation about it. And then we had to confront each other in front of 200 something people.
How's it feel to be a grown adult telling you can't talk in the hallway, or you're gonna be taken to some counsel?
That sucked.
Yeah,
It sucked
yeah.
bad. But I got took to confrontation one time. I had just gotten there. I was in the med line, and they pulled me up. And you're supposed to say thank you. I'll get right on top of that behavior. Well, I didn't say it because I wasn't thinking because I was new.
Yeah.
And I got took to the circle, and I actually made it through that after I did it. I'm like, this isn't so bad. So I started writing my tickets and taking people to the circle, and I got a voice. Like I wasn't as shy or scared to talk. I felt heard and understood, and I learned what that was like. That how to confront someone in a healthy manner. So that was something that I think contributed to my recovery.
So the circle was like a restorative justice type of, I guess, like a safe place where you could talk out your grievances with each other.
Kind of, sort of, but you had a format you had to say it in, which I can't remember that. But it was
okay.
It's a whole format. You just
I
tell
doth
them,
declare that you have offended myself.
it's more like I'm bringing you to the circle today because you did this, this, and this, and my responsible concern is, and you tell them a responsible concern so that they understand what they did, and then they ask, then the counselors ask if I felt heard and understood. So
Right.
yeah, so it was more to teach us how to convey our concerns with somebody, so we're not people pleasing all the time. It
Right.
helped cut down that cognitive behavioral therapy. That was a big part of my thing at ACC. That was what really helped my mindset, I think, too.
Okay.
It's a lot.
So you're there for a few months, and then you get out. Apparently, you're here.
Yes, and I'm scared.
Yeah.
Scared to death because I had to restart drug court from the beginning.
Oh, really? So they made you start drug court again after you got out of the ACC program.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So I'd already done like 11 or 12 weeks in phase one. So it was like 3 months in phase one. I had to start it completely over in phase one. But this time, like, I sailed through it. Like, it was no problem. Like, my whole mindset was different. So I saw where they were coming from. I was scared to death at first, but like, I saw where they were coming from on everything better than I did previously. So I had to get that, I guess, that old thinking out and learn how to think positively and differently. Like I said, I sailed through it. And I graduated in August of 2024, August of last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you graduated drug court. So obviously, I know you through Exodus, and so you went through Exodus's program. Was that while you were going through drug court, or
Yes, I worked with a peer specialist while I was going through drug court.
okay? And that was Marguerite.
Well, no, I did initially, and then I worked with Cindy Cindy Vent when she
Okay.
was still there. And then I continued to work with her until I finished drug court.
Okay.
So she was there at part of the time, I think, with Exodus for a little while, but
Yeah.
she didn't stay there real long, I don't think.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, that's very cool. But you've stayed connected to Exodus since then.
Yes.
So August 2024, you graduate drug court. But what happens after that?
So then a week after I graduated drug court, I went to peer training, so to get my training out of the way to become certified peer specialist. So.
Nice. So you became a peer specialist yourself after you received help from other peer specialists
Yes.
and stuff. Was it because like you saw, oh, this is what actually helps people get out of their
Absolutely.
mess?
So what I saw was this, okay, and this is something we learned in training too. With our filter, like some of our core beliefs change. One of them is through the power of a peer. And that's true. That helped me a lot. So.
Yeah. So peer support it obviously helped you because you were like, well, this person's been through it.
Yeah.
And that's, kind of consistently what we hear on this, the podcast that we hear all the time is peer support being somebody who has gone through, they've been where you've been, they've lived through that experience, they've pulled themselves or had somebody else pull them out, you know what I mean? And it's sort of a pay it forward type of, I would say it's activity, but it's a job. It's a job. You do get paid for it when if you can find a good, organization or facility that will hire peer specialists that are looking for, which I've seen more and more job listings for those lately. And we're training more peers, across the state. I know that are finding more meaningful employment by helping people get through the stuff that you needed to help with in the first place. And so kind of reciprocal to pay it forward. So last week you became a certified peer specialist.
Just took my test.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what are you hoping to do with that? Or are you already
I'm
employed
already
with
working.
that?
I am
what are you
employed.
doing?
Okay, so when I finished peer training, I actually volunteered with Exodus to start getting some of my hours for my credentialing. And then Delta Counseling in Monticello, they had an opening. So I applied for it, and they hired me pretty much on the spot.
Right.
So I worked there part-time because I am on disability still. But I was working there part-time. I'm still working there part-time right now currently. But I'm about to take a new position in another place full-time. And I'm going to do my trial months for disability to try to work my way off of it because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're completely doing away with your disability.
Well, maybe eventually, but the way it works now is like you get 9 trial months, and so you can work
does that mean?
full-time. Well, so you can work full-time and make as much money as you want to.
For 9 months while
and
you're
still
on
get your
disability?
check.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Still get your check. Then after that, you can work for another, I think it's another year or so, but you won't receive your check. And then after that, they eventually cut you off. But
Right.
if for some reason after those 9 months are up and you're in that 2 to 3 year range right there, if you have to go back on your disability for some reason, your benefits are protected because you have to go through an agency.
Sure.
I'm doing a Ticket to Work program, so.
Okay. But your goal is to get completely off of
Yes.
disability, build your career out as a certified peer specialist.
Yes.
And that's awesome. So what does a peer specialist do?
So for me, okay, so at Delta Counseling it's a little different because it's mostly mental health that I work with. I don't really work with substance use disorder there. So occasionally you'll get one that does. But for there, what I do there is I facilitate groups mainly, groups to help empower them to kind of see that there's more to life than just being in the system. So.
Right. And so I'm sure that, obviously for that to be a career and be a full-time job, that it's a full-time job.
Right.
Where you're.
So I model recovery. So
Yeah.
I'm not only modeling just, substance use recovery. I'm modeling mental health recovery also. So when they see somebody that's been through it, it helps them to kind of like, there's a young lady that's in one of my groups. She's like, I want to do what you do.
Wow.
So, and I think she's applied, but I'm not sure.
That's great. Yeah. So you're already inspiring other people to come out and do what they're with.
That's what I've been noticing. Yes.
Yeah, same thing you've done. When you got your certification for peer service recovery, was it through a certain organization, or did you have to fulfill? I know you said you had to get so many hours, but like who determines how many hours you have to put in?
Okay, the state does NADAC. NADAC is our credentialing body now. So NADAC determine how many hours we're supposed to have. So I had to have a core training, and then I had to have continuing education. I had a supervision, and then 500 work hours.
Right.
So I completed all that, and once I completed that, I was eligible to test. So.
Wow. Very cool. And today is.
My 3 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, 3 years sober. And you just got your certification, and you're about to join to this full-time job. So like things are looking bright for you now, much brighter than they were a few years ago, right?
Yes, and I'm really excited about this new job too. I'm nervous, but I'm excited because it's like I wasn't expected to be offered it because at the time I applied, I wasn't certified. And I don't know, it just worked out. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting, it's like a raise. There's even a raise in like, compared to my other job, it's a big raise. So
Right.
like it's just, I don't know. It's like I start off with one place and then something happens and it's getting better and better and better. Now, I mean, I have bad days still, but none that make me want to drink or use.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I've, starting which is just a few years ago, just getting introduced to Exodus and a few other, people that I've worked with, where like recovery was something completely new to me. I've never had, I've never had to go through it myself, and I've never like dealt with it, and I've never known that whole world where it is kind of, and so like everything has been a learning experience over these past few years. But what I've gathered is that, and your story kind of confirms this, that recovery, it looks different for everybody, of course, but also it can't just be one piece. There can't just be one thing that solves your recovery. And so you needed drug court, you needed the ACC program, but you also needed your peer support specialist, and you went through two of those.
I also do 12-step as well.
And you did 12-step as
I
well.
also do, yes. I'm actually a GSR for my home group for AA.
Yeah.
So I'm in service work there as well. So, yeah.
Wow. And you kind of had to have several different experiences with different sort of resources to help you through your recovery in order to,
Yeah, absolutely.
maintain and go where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I also did Celebrate Recovery, too.
Yeah.
I did faith-based. I did a little bit of everything. My recovery story looks like a combination of several different things.
Sure.
But peer support was a big part of it.
I think that's everyone that goes through like a successful recovery, you know what I mean? That really took it seriously, and then they've come out of it and now they're like paying it forward. We hear a lot of those stories, but it's, there's no one cure all, you know what I mean? It's not, here's your magic potion, here's your one answer to getting off of substance abuse. But I think, if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, people go to 12-step programs, and then once you're out of the program, you're done. That's it.
But you never graduate from 12-step.
But I thought that's what it was. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's how ignorant I was. And I think that's how a lot of people are. If somehow you don't have a relative or a friend or neighbor or, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, your son, your daughter, if you don't have some sort of relation to somebody that's had substance abuse and went through some sort of recovery, your kind of touchstone is just through TVs, movies, books, and like consumption of like entertainment. So like we always see, celebrities, they were on drugs for a while and then they got to this rehab, and now they're on social media saying that they're all better because they went through rehab. But in like reality, in these conversations that we're having here, you learn, oh, that's not true at all. Like, you can't just go to rehab and then all of a sudden you're magically fixed. Like, that doesn't work.
Right, you have to put in work.
Yeah, like
It's a
it's
lot
got
of
to put
work.
in work, and it can't just be rehab. It's got to be several other things that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not, law imposed or whatever, if it's not drug court, you definitely need peers that you can lean on, people that, can help you through it. And John Mulaney, who is a famous, stand-up comedian who went through, he went through all that and then relapsed. And he talks about it famously on stage too, where he was like, yeah, he's got people that he calls up to the point to where if he needs, like, even though he's like a multimillionaire because of the entertainment that he's, and the amount of wealth that he's been able to build up over the years, he's got somebody where he has to call because he set it up on his bank where he can't withdraw a certain amount of money without alerting their phone. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he knows he needs that accountability.
Right.
And that's real recovery. And I
That's
think,
setting goals, and that's putting things in place. Absolutely. Accountability is a big part of it.
right.
I have a son that's an active, well, I'm not going to say he's an active addiction. I think he's doing better than he was. I don't think he's using anymore. He tells me he's not. I had not spoken to him for almost a year until recently, but he was an active addiction, and he, like I said, he's telling me he's not using, but
Yeah.
I haven't laid eyes on him myself, so
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. But I had no contact with him for almost a year just because I had to put my recovery first.
Oh, right. Right. We'll say the one that you were living off of his disability, that one. Okay.
That one, but this is when he was younger. I was doing
Right.
that, but he's 22 now, so
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
How does he feel about what you're doing for a living?
he's proud of me. So yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
My husband's also in recovery too, so
Awesome.
yeah, we're just a whole recovery family. So
Yeah, and that's kind of how it works out. I mean,
Yeah.
for whatever reason or another, make your own conclusions of like how it happens, but like being able to, But I mean, it kind of ties back into like needing that support system. And so like, you really can't, you
Yeah.
can't get the same support from somebody that's never, been through that situation than you can for someone who's like, oh, I've been
Yeah.
there too. And I'm also on that journey. Let's do this journey together because we know what it costs us when we don't,
That's right.
Right. And I think, for the rest of us, whatever we hear about people going through recovery, most of the times we'll read the headlines in the articles, the clickbait headlines where
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
whenever somebody didn't successfully go through recovery, what I mean? They robbed somebody or they committed another crime or they got busted for
They
drugs.
died.
Yeah. Or they died. And fentanyl, like the big fentanyl thing that's going on
Everything.
right now where it's killing
Yes.
everybody.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And I remember like when K2 was a big thing and making people jump off of tiers in jails and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. But those stories of people that are finding themselves and like they're doing the opposite of what they were doing, which was like they were putting negative energy out there
Yeah.
and negative actions that were causing people harm, and then the complete opposite where they're trying to pull people out of that themselves. You don't really hear about a whole lot about that because that's just not, it didn't make us a good story for people to read, I guess. Like it's a
Yep.
feel good story, but it's also like really, really important
Yes.
because like we're not going to be able to survive this if more and more people become addicted and then don't seek recovery.
Right.
Right. So,
I think when we started sharing our voices, I think that's a big part of the turnaround for recovery. When people started being loud about their recovery, that's a big part of it. Like for me, I had not heard anything about recovery until I got into recovery. But then I wanted to tell everybody, hey, I'm in recovery. I
Yeah.
want you to know this. I'm proud of it. Like, even though I am a member of a 12-step program and we tend to be anonymous, I'm not anonymous.
right.
Now, as the 12-step program, yes, I
Yeah.
don't. But as for me personally, no. I want everybody to know.
Yeah.
Because it's possible.
Right. Yeah. And then recovering out loud, like,
Yeah.
when you're doing that, making your message known, your people are getting inspiration. Like you very inspired one person who said that she wants to become a peer
Yeah.
specialist because of that. And like that obviously works rather than what I think a lot of us as people, like we want to tend to hide our scars and what we've been through. You know what I
Right.
mean? We want to present ourselves in a very certain way, especially in the day and age of, social media where it's like, well,
Oh, yeah.
only the pretty stuff makes the cut. You know what I mean? Well, this is the photo
I
album
do.
of all the vacation photos. We're not going to put in all the other stuff where I was in a bad situation and, didn't bathe for a week. You know what I mean? And those types of,
I still have days where, like I said, I have bad days where, like, I don't feel like just going anywhere or doing anything.
Yeah.
But, like, it's nothing compared to a bad day I had in my addiction. Like, I
Right.
have pictures that I share on my Facebook all the time about that. Like, I'll share pictures and I don't even look like the same person.
yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, I look like that for real. And I thought I was looking good.
Yeah.
I was not looking
Oh, in
good.
your mind. Yeah. Yeah. Like everything's just perfectly normal.
Yeah, I had all 10 tons of makeup on and covering
Right.
up my circles under my eyes and all that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? It was bad.
So I've seen you at a lot of different recovery events as well. The conventions and a lot of the stuff that the National Peer Recovery Association
Yes.
and all those different organizations are like putting on these events, and like it seems like Kristen's always there no matter what it is.
Yeah.
What do you get out of those?
So I learn new things, and I'm all about learning because as long as I'm learning, I'm growing. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So anytime I go to these, I go with an open mind to learn something new. So that's the main thing for me. Also make connections with other peers that serve in the state of Arkansas as well.
Wow.
As long as we stay connected, we can effectively help others. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it too. I have a lot of friends in the peer community, and I love the peer community. It's amazing. We're so resilient and we're so brave. And the people that just share their stories, this is the first time I've really done it on anything like this, but I have in person, but it's just, it takes a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And my time with just going to these events and like learning from people and their stories, and especially when they get up on stage, and maybe they may be there to teach something, but like they always start with like, "Here's my story." It's never like, "Oh, you think you had it bad? Here was my story."
Right.
Nobody's trying to one up each other. It's just
No.
everybody's free with like, "Oh yeah, oof, man, that's rough too. Yeah, me too. Here's what I went
Yeah.
through."
A lot of times I can relate to some of the stories, not all of
Exactly.
them, but there's some pieces in each of the story that I can relate to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's incredible.
definitely.
Well, Kristen, thank you so much for coming, and congratulations again on like
Thank
so many different accomplishments. And so there's the 3 years,
Yeah.
getting your license, getting a new full-time job with that license, and so what you're doing forward with your life. I want to kind of get your last take here. What is a long-term proposal for you? Like, what do you see long-term recovery being?
Continuing to make connections, continuing to work with others because their recovery helps me too. Just staying in the recovery community, period. Like, it's just, I don't see myself going back. That's not something that I want to do. So,
That's great. Awesome. And congratulations again.
thank you.
If you are watching this as a video on YouTube, you can find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast on your favorite platforms, from iHeart to Apple to Spotify. You take it your choice. We're also in the video version on YouTube. Please subscribe, please follow, please share these with people that you think might be able to benefit from these stories like Christians. I mean, like what you're doing with your real life is very inspirational, and your story deserves to be shared, needs to be shared. If you're seeking recovery, you can always reach out to exodus.life. You can find them online at www.exodus.life. And until the next episode, we will see you next time.